Snacka inte så jävla mycket. Råttan.
The movie begins with a teenager named Erik, who gets into a violent argument with one of his friends. Things quickly escalate, and Erik ends up beating him while their other friends just watch, too scared to step in. Erik has a reputation for fighting, and nobody wants to mess with him. Because of his constant troublemaking, Erik is called in by the school principal and gets expelled on the spot. When he returns home, things only get worse. His stepfather plans to punish him for the fight and the expulsion, and Erik's mother, although she knows everything that's going on, doesn't step in to help. She believes he needs to face the consequences of his actions and lets the punishment happen. Later, Erik's mom arranges for him to meet a friend of hers named Gunnar, who's a lawyer. Gunnar gives Erik his business card and tells him to reach out if he ever needs help. Erik doesn't say much, just quietly looks at the card once Gunnar leaves. That same evening, his mom tells him she's disappointed in him for getting kicked out of school. But then she surprises him. She's enrolled him in a new boarding school for boys called SD Jansberg. She tells Erik that this is his last shot to turn things around and expects him to make the most of it. Erik agrees, promising to do better, finish school, and make her proud. When Erik arrives at his new school, he looks completely different, wearing a school uniform and a neat, short haircut. He's assigned a roommate named Pierre, who's known as the smartest kid in school. Erik and Pierre hit it off right away. Pierre was kind, easygoing, and made Erik feel at ease in the new environment. That evening, the two of them headed to the dining hall together. While they were eating, Erik met another student named Johan. Johan explained that this school had its own set of unwritten rules, where students were treated differently depending on their social status. Just as Johan finished saying this, the student sitting next to Erik was suddenly called over by two boys sitting further down the table, Otto and Gustav. The boy who got called over was from a regular, working-class family, but Otto and Gustav were from noble, upper-class backgrounds. They enjoyed picking on students like him, those who didn't come from wealth or power. They acted like they were better than everyone else because their families had strong connections within the school. On top of that, they belonged to an elite student club that gave them the power to discipline others, which they used to bully those they looked down on. Later that night, Pierre asked Erik if he wanted to sneak out for a smoke. Erik hesitated. He de-promised his mom he wouldn't break any rules at this new school. Johan joined in and warned them that getting caught could mean serious trouble. Still, Pierre seemed so confident they wouldn't get caught that Erik finally gave in and agreed. The next morning at breakfast, Otto and Gustav called Erik over again. They claimed it was a school tradition to welcome new students and said they just wanted to show him how things work. Erik refused to go along with it, and that decision came with consequences. Not long after, Otto brutally attacked Johan, so badly that Johan had to be taken to the infirmary for medical help. That evening, Otto and Gustav were already planning their next move. They called Erik to their usual hangout spot and ordered him to clean a pile of filthy shoes left scattered on the floor. Erik looked at the mess, grew irritated, and flat-out refused again. He walked away angry. Gustav, frustrated, asked Otto what they should do about Erik, but Otto didn't seem too bothered. He shrugged it off and said they should give Erik some space since he was still new. Later, Erik talked to Pierre about what had happened. Pierre's mood shifted instantly. He looked concerned and warned Erik not to push Otto and Gustav too far. He explained that standing up to them usually came with serious consequences, and most students gave in just to avoid trouble. But Erik stood firm. Even though he used to get into fights all the time, he said he wasn't scared of them and didn't plan on following their orders. That night, Erik and Pierre tried to think of ways to deal with Otto and Gustav's bullying without getting physical. But it wasn't easy. Most students just went along with whatever Otto and Gustav said, too afraid of getting hurt if they resisted. The next day, Erik was walking through the school hallway when Gustav accidentally bumped into him. Instead of apologizing, Gustav demanded that Erik say sorry. But Erik stood his ground. He believed it was Gustav's fault and refused to apologize. Gustav was furious and challenged Erik to a fight later that night at a specific spot. Pierre and Johan brought Erik the message and warned him that Otto and Gustav never fought fair. They would likely show up with backup to gang up on him. At first, Erik was ready to take the challenge. He had a history of fighting and wasn't one to back down. But later, he remembered what his mom had told him. If he wanted to stay in school and build a better future, he had to stay out of trouble. That thought made him change his mind. Back in their room, Pierre offered Erik a cigarette to help him calm down. Meanwhile, at the fight location, Otto and Gustav waited for Erik for quite a while. When he didn't show, Otto assumed Erik was too scared and started mocking him, with their group laughing and cheering in support. The next day, Otto publicly called out the names of students who were known for breaking rules or refusing to follow the school's strict student hierarchy. Erik's name was on the list. Later, during a school hearing, Otto, who also happened to be the student council president, handed down Erik's punishment, 1 full month of confinement and a physical task. Erik was ordered to dig a 1-meter-deep trench around the school grounds. Each evening, Erik worked on the trench until it got dark. Because of this, he always ate dinner alone in the dining hall. One night while eating, a canteen worker named Marja approached him. She seemed curious about Erik and mentioned that he reminded her of her brother, someone who also hated being told what to do. She said Erik had that same stubborn spirit. After dinner, Erik went outside for a quick smoke, as he usually did. To his surprise, Marja showed up. She warned him about how bad smoking was and even commented on how it made his breath smell. Then, unexpectedly, she kissed him and hugged him tightly. They both knew the risks. Relationships between students and staff were strictly forbidden. If anyone found out, Erik could be expelled and Marja could lose her job. But in that moment, neither of them seemed to care. They just wanted to feel close, even if only for one night. When Christmas break arrived, Erik went home. His mother welcomed him warmly, happy to see him. His stepfather, however, was less enthusiastic. He immediately started asking questions about Erik's punishments and school suspensions. Erik didn't hold back. He explained that he had stood up to a powerful student who came from a wealthy family. His stepfather wasn't impressed. He lectured Erik about the importance of respecting authority and knowing his place, especially around noble students. Then, unhappy with Erik's poor grades and all the trouble he had caused, he decided to punish him again with another round of caning. Erik's mother, fully aware of everything her son was going through, quietly stepped aside. She didn't try to stop it. She knew Erik was struggling, but she also knew he had to find his own way through it. After the Christmas break, Erik returned to school looking forward to seeing Marja again. He had missed her deeply. When they finally reunited, they shared some quiet, tender moments under the moonlight, comforting each other with affection after being apart. Meanwhile, Otto and Gustav found out Erik was back and decided to pull another prank on him. That night, while Erik was asleep, they broke into his room and scattered dirt everywhere. Their pranks always seemed to go unpunished. The next morning, Erik and Pierre woke up to find their room a mess. They cleaned it up, but Erik wasn't about to just let it slide. He gathered the leftover dirt and quietly slipped into Otto's room while he was still asleep. Erik scattered the dirt all over Otto's bed and floor, just as a little payback. At breakfast the next day, Erik decided to take things further. In front of everyone in the dining hall, he loudly asked if anyone else could smell something awful. Then he began sniffing around, pretending to track down the source of the bad odor. He walked over to Otto's table, stopped, and announced that the smell was coming from Otto himself. The entire room turned to look. Otto, humiliated and furious, stood up and punched Erik in the face several times. Erik didn't fight back. He remembered the promise he made to his mother not to get into any more trouble. Seeing that Erik wasn't retaliating, Marja quickly stepped in and told Otto to stop, warning him that they couldn't break Erik this way. Otto and Gustav then shifted their attention to Pierre, Erik's roommate and only real friend at school. Otto confronted Pierre in the dining hall, accusing him of disrespect. Pierre calmly refused to respond, saying he didn't owe Otto anything. But Otto wasn't done. He threatened Pierre and challenged him to a fight after their last class. It was clear they were targeting Pierre just to get a reaction out of Erik. Otto wanted to send a message. Anyone who sided with Erik would suffer the consequences. That evening, Pierre showed up to the fight, even though he had no one backing him. Otto and Gustav arrived with several of their friends. The fight was unfair from the start. Pierre tried his best, but he didn't stand a chance. After just a few blows, he was knocked to the ground. By the time Erik got there, it was too late to stop it. He helped Pierre back to their room and took care of his injuries. Later that night, Erik ran into Marja again. The two spent the evening together, finding comfort in each other once more. The next morning, Erik rushed back to his room, worried about Pierre. But when he got there, the room was empty. Pierre was gone. His belongings had been taken, a clear sign that he didn't plan on coming back. On Erik's desk, Pierre had left a letter. In the letter, Pierre apologized for leaving so suddenly. He thanked Erik for being a great friend and urged him not to give up. He encouraged Erik to keep standing up against the unfair treatment from Otto and his gang and to fight for the students who didn't have a voice. Reading the letter lit a fire in Erik. He had kept his head down long enough. Now he was ready to show everyone who he really was. Driven by what happened to Pierre and the way so many students had been bullied, Erik decided to strike back. He went to the dining hall and found Gustav. Without hesitation, he challenged him and von Schernen to a one-on-one fight in the school arena. Both Gustav and von Schernen were bigger and stronger than Erik, and they carried themselves with the confidence that came from wealthy, powerful families. but Erik saw through them. They weren't as tough as they pretended to be. They relied on their parents' influence and the fear they spread. Erik stood his ground and faced them head-on. Despite their size, he fought with determination and skill, quickly defeating both of them. Then he turned to Otto, who had been watching in disbelief. Erik made it clear Otto was next. But before dealing with him, Erik went to the cafeteria, where one of the female staff members quietly pulled him aside. She gave him some heartbreaking news. Marja had been fired and had left the school. She handed Erik a letter Marja had left behind. Reading her words hit Erik hard. Losing her so suddenly, right after losing Pierre, left him shaken. Meanwhile, one of Otto's friends had been spying and saw Erik receive the letter. He ran to tell Otto what he'd seen. Later, Otto and his group barged into Erik's room and began searching through his things. They found the letter from Marja. Otto read it and discovered the truth about Erik's secret relationship with her. Wasting no time, Otto took the letter to the principal as evidence. He saw it as the perfect opportunity to get Erik expelled for breaking one of the school's strictest rules. The principal wasted no time. He called Erik in and expelled him on the spot, barely acknowledging the seriousness of what had happened to Pierre. Erik accepted the punishment calmly, but before leaving, he made one heartfelt request. He asked for Marja's letter back, the only thing he had left of her. The principal refused and locked the letter away in his drawer. Now that he had nothing left to lose, Erik decided it was time to get back at Otto for everything he had suffered at St. Jansberg. With his expulsion already final, there was no reason to hold back. He tracked down Otto, who happened to be walking alone in the woods, and confronted him. Armed with just a stick, Erik backed Otto into a corner. To his surprise, Otto panicked. He dropped to his knees, trembling and terrified, and quickly offered Erik a huge bribe, $100,000, if he would just leave him alone. But Erik wasn't interested in money. As he moved in closer, Otto completely broke down. He begged for mercy, sobbing and even getting physically sick from fear. Erik paused, looking at the pathetic state Otto was in. He held Otto's face and quietly told him he wouldn't harm him. He wasn't going to stoop to Otto's level. Hurting weaker people, even bullies like Otto, wasn't who Erik wanted to be. Afterward, Erik returned to the school to pack his things. That's when he remembered what Gunnar, the lawyer, had told him. If he ever found himself in trouble, he should reach out. So Erik made the call. Not long after, Gunnar arrived at the school. Erik explained everything that had happened, and together they approached the principal, who was chatting with some of the teachers. Erik made a final plea. He didn't want to be expelled, and he just wanted Marja's letter back. The principal refused again at first. But when Gunnar calmly suggested that they could expose the toxic class system at the school, the bullying, and the principal's role in covering it all up, the principal's tone began to change. With no other option, the principal gave in to all of Erik's requests. The student council, once controlled by Otto and used to bully others, was officially disbanded. Erik was deeply grateful to Gunnar for helping him return to school and finally putting an end to Otto's grip over the students. From then on, Erik enjoyed peaceful days at St. Jansberg. Eventually, graduation day arrived. His mother was filled with pride and joy, thrilled by everything her son had overcome and accomplished. His stepfather, however, was still not satisfied, pointing out Erik's low marks in behavior. When his stepfather tried to raise a hand in punishment, Erik finally stood his ground. He told him firmly that there would be no more violence in their home. This time, Erik ended it for good, removing his stepfather from their lives once and for all. Later, Erik reunited with Pierre, who was preparing to leave for Geneva to continue his studies. The two friends shared a heartfelt goodbye, promising they'd meet again someday, bringing the movie recap to an end.